All right, Chad. So I want to ask you about whenever you're meeting with a law firm and you're kind of going through everything and you're assessing what's going on with the firm. What are some red flags to identify whenever there's too much work being placed on that law firm owner?
I think those flags are always there. And so if I'm having an initial conversation, let's say you and I haven't met, the flags are going to come out almost immediately. I know I'm doing too much. I have a full caseload and I never have time to work on the firm. There's all these cool things out there I want to try, but I don't do it. Or they have set, you ask them about goals. And like, of course I do. I've got goals. Here's what I'm going to do. How are those going? Like, I've got too much casework. It comes out real quick, real easy. I mean, so it's not even flags. It's just there, front and center.
All right. So I want to ask you something related to that. Do you think it's possible, like, and what I mean by possible, I think almost anything's possible. What I mean is, like, is it realistic to expect a law firm owner to be able to actually practice law and run the law firm? Or do you think it's better to have more of a practice manager type, whether that's a lawyer or non-lawyer, and then someone that actually runs the practice side of things, where it's when it comes to like the legal operations?
I think it really depends on the individual, because that's where we could read a million books on how to run a business.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them out there, and they're all really saying the same thing with a different edge to it. But it really depends on the individual, because I think there are some that can pull off both. Some that have been doing this long enough that they've figured out the sweet spot of, I want X number of cases, and I'll do the 5 to 10 big ones that I like, the clients I really want to work with, and then I work on the firm the rest of the time. Some people are awful at working on the firm and know it, so then they bring in somebody else. But that's a hard one too, because especially if the firm is focused around the founder and that name is around the founder, you're going to go 2, 3, 4 attempts at finding that practice manager, because the people that you think maybe internal first, like, oh, this person's been with me for a while, they get it, they get me. Well, they may suck at managing others. They may be really good at the job they had, but then you promote them up and it doesn't work. And so I think it really depends. And that's where you have these conversations with people that have read, let's go with traction. Let's hit shots or something, drinking game for saying different buzz terms. But like if we go traction or EOS, people are like, I need an integrator. That's where people default to. It's like, you're not ready for that. Right. Or no, you don't, because you don't have your act together, or you're really good at this, so don't hand it off. So it really depends on the individual.
It's interesting what you said about that too, because you hear people talk about they'll just adopt a phrase or some sort of methodology. And I don't think that there's any perfect book out there. Like, I've always been a fan of scaling up. I'm a fan of traction. It's not like I'm against it, but it has forced people to think, oh, I need a visionary and I need an integrator. And I think that's kind of nonsense. I think it works for some. It doesn't work for all. I think that if you want to scale, I think that traction's a really difficult model to scale in, because you make it so 1 or 2 person focused, where you have the visionary, and usually it centers around the visionary, and I think people like the phrase visionary.
It sounds cool.
Oh, it sounds really cool.
Integrator sounds lame and like you do work. Visionary is like you sit around with your pipe and your bourbon, and you're just listening to music by the fire, thinking of big thoughts that people are going to do for you. Like, it's just and I think that there's a real problem with that. And so I actually wanted to get your thoughts on that. Whether it sounds like you might be in the similar same of thought, but I just didn't know if you had any thoughts on that. Yeah, no, I think that's the case. And I think when I started doing this a long time ago, I tried implementing these different concepts to say, hey, here's some good tools. Let's do this. Traction was out. Well, I guess scaling up, although I like the Vern Gino thing, where I saw some blog post somewhere where Vern's like, listen, Gino was my student. And, Yeah, basically, like this blog post is like, he's kind of a whiny bitch, and I wish him the best, and he's done great things, but still, like I got this. I'm a little bit better.
Well, it is interesting you say that. Before you finish your thought, is that there are some overlap, definitely some overlap,
For sure.
but it's the basic principles actually are quite a bit different. Like if you actually were to read Scaling Up and study it versus Traction, it is there's some definitely radical turns
For sure. And I first looked at Scaling Up after Traction, and actually you were talking about Scaling Up, and I saw, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go take a look at that. And now, quite frankly, now, like, you don't need those books. What you need to do is go to Claude or ChatGPT and say, hey, here's my issue. Here's what I'm trying to accomplish. And which is, people that work with firms like me, like, that I love that now when I have those conversations and say, here's the things I've been working through, because now it helps you focus in on really what matters. Because you can say, look, I want to run my firm like Vern would with Scaling Up. Here's what I've got. Tell me everything I need to do. And so anyway, the fitting people into the model, as I was talking about earlier, coming back to that, I tried it for a while, but then it just, most people that are looking for that help either are going to hire true consultants that do just those models. And I looked at that once because I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll just do this. And then I think it's like a franchise for EOS, and
100% it is. Yeah.
And I talked to somebody on it. It was a very short call. She's like, all right. And I'm like, well, do I have to just do this? And she's like, yeah, you only do EOS. It's exclusive. And if you do anything else, we'll pull your franchise. I'm like, ooh, okay, this is not a good fit.
Well, okay, so this is a really good point too. And I think that part of the reason why law firm owners are drawn to EOS is because it is like you have this one or two people that it centers around, and so they're kind of drawn. Oh, I want to be the person.
Right.
But think about this. Okay, like, if you look at Scaling Up, if we just compare those two, I think this is a great topic for this conversation, because EOS is that more, you got center based sort of leadership.
Right.
When it comes, and yes, you have leadership teams and all that kind of stuff, but it really does center around one or two people. That's not how Scaling Up is built. Scaling Up is more like you're building a company, right? And what's interesting to me is that you have people pushing EOS, but it's also franchise based, where you have these individual people that you have to rely on. Like they're the ones that I can't remember they call them traction coaches. I can't remember what they call them, but I think there's another term for it.
Yeah, there's a
Implementers, right?
Because I still get their emails like, join this call. Or like, I just remember this lady that I talked to. I feel like I offended her when I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. And she's like, well, you're an idiot.
Well, so think about this. Like, so you were dependent on an implementer. But if you go outside the legal space, go outside of really, go look at the biggest companies. Are they dependent on a third party to help them run their business? Sure, they might hire consultants every once in a while for one-offs, but you're not completely dependent on an implementer.
Correct.
Not at all.
Right. You're hiring internally. That's you at some point, because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So how, if you're a law firm advisor, I guess, is that how I think that's what your LinkedIn profile says, as law firm advisor.
I haven't looked at LinkedIn in a while, which is somebody told me the other day, they're like, your picture is so old. I was like, I guess I got to go look at, so it may say that. Okay,
it does. And I noticed we were actually not connected on LinkedIn, which I thought was hilarious.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we've known each other for years, right?
Probably because I don't use it, but I'm
the same way.
That may be a flaw.
If I want to be abused by a bunch of spam messages, I'll go on LinkedIn.
Right, exactly.
That's what I'll do.
So many options.
How do you avoid that stigma as someone that advises law firms whenever you have things like that out there that maybe like, well, I don't want to have to freaking pay you like nonstop to help me with my firm?
Well, that goes to kind of how our models evolved. Yes, advisor is fine. Like, ChatGPT is an advisor now, or Claude, or pick your favorite version of it. I mean, one of the things that I've enjoyed about our model is that it's evolved a lot over time. I mean, when Billy and I started at, I don't know, modern law practice probably 8 years ago or so, there was the consulting component, and then we had this outsourced intake.
Yep.
Because at that time, there wasn't a lot of attention being paid outside the plaintiff's world to intake. Like family law firms are starting to think, okay, we got to start getting our head around the sales process, and we don't have people. So we started this, outsource model to be able to come in and do your intake, give you a system on it. And, it evolved to, we were getting a lot of feedback from our consulting clients saying like, look, we like Clio, let's say, but we hate these 5 things about it. Mm-hmm. Can you help us build something? And so we started building a platform called Law Firm OS, which ended up being full-on operating system for law firms. Case management, leads, the leadership team, KPI tracking, help desk, like HR, all the things. And it was a quasi SaaS model where it's very customized for the firm, but it allowed to fill in gaps where, let's say you did use Clio, but you wanted all these other things. And that's a hard model and a fun model to do. But then as, quite frankly, like AI, as it's been developing out, it's like it wasn't right. And so Clio this fall, when they came out with all their stuff and their new like Clio work and everything, I told our clients like, look, I think you should go over there. Like, do it. Go. We're going to migrate you over there, and we'll work together in our own way. But building software in that fashion doesn't make sense, if you're not a full-on software company. So we've been kind of hovering between consulting and this tech model. And what we've moved to now, and it actually ties in nicely to the traction piece, is managed services, like MSOs that you see in the medical space, where you get some doctors that get together and say like, look, we want to start a practice, but we don't know shit about how to run the business. And they hire a third-party company that comes in and does everything for them, provides the tech, whatever, the humans and everything. So we, for example, last fall, I guess we did it October 1st, I was approached by a lawyer that said, hey, I'm bored with what I'm doing, and I want to swing big. And so we built a model. We combined 8 of the leading family formation firms, adoption firms from around the country into one firm, and launched that and run the operations. We'll spin it off internally as it makes sense, but we built the model, run the show operationally. Right now, this week we're going live with an MSO and a new law firm model for where the MSO is running marketing, intake, and operations for a network of firms, mostly focused on plaintiff's employment, PI, and some more complex business litigation. So we're still building the software. So we have an AI-first operating system, but it's our version of it. Not like, what does a firm want? It's, here's how we're going to do this. Yeah. Here's how agents fit into it. Here's how the latest version of something goes. And so we're not building it to sell the software. We're building it to run these operations, which is kind of fun. It's very different. And so I've taken out, we're advising. I don't give a shit about traction or scaling up or any of these things now from the standpoint of advising law firms, because if you're there, that's not a fit for us. We're going for working with firms that are like big swing firms.
Yeah.
Another firm came to us when was it? It was last summer. Family law firm, and said, look, we're doing great, but I've got, 10 years left and I want a better exit. And I love this AI stuff. I don't know what to do with it. 10X my firm for an exit, or set me up to sell. Sure. So I was like, well, great timing, because because our MSO model has outside investment tied to it. So funding leads and funding marketing efforts, funding operations, so that we can help those firms scale quicker with our team and our technology. And so with this guy now, we're rebuilding his entire infrastructure that had existed pretty much the same for about 25 years. amicus is in the conversation.
You're kidding me.
We're ditching amicus in this in favor of an agentic model. This guy is great. And we'll run the show with his team. He's got an established team, and we'll operate alongside and help scale the firm that way. So that's a different way of, so law firm advisor is a little bit, too vague from that
way
standpoint.
Too vague. I mean, you were way more integrated. I don't know about integrated. You were way more customizable you customize things more for the firm itself, it seems, which I think is incredible. Although you have your unique, what the MSO does is very unique in that it is very specific and that's great. I wonder why aren't MSOs more common in the legal space?
I think they're coming quick. One, probably the ownership issues are like law firm owners, since we have that situation where outside funding is still looked at, outside of here. I mean, we're in Arizona here, you can have, with ABSs, we've got non-lawyer ownership, although those are now coming under fire.
Which is crazy how you start to see their companies leave the ABS model.
Right. Well, yeah, because you can also, in Arizona, the Supreme Court got rid of fee sharing. And so it's now anybody can share a fee without the regular parameters that we've seen. So a family law firm can get a case from random person and say, hey, thanks a lot. I'm going to give you X number of dollars for your referral.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, they just erased the rule. And it was about 4 years ago, 2021.
Wow.
Yeah. So so a lot of times because I've had people come to me and say, hey, I want help with creating an ABS. And you really talk to them and it's like, well, you don't need an ABS. You just you can split fees now. And there's no, it's not even that there was some parameters put on it. The rule is gone. And so, think about that. So you deal with this, right? From the standpoint of referrals for cases, and you have to depending upon your jurisdiction, make sure is that referring party or are you involved enough? What is it? What is that line as far as involvement to be able to properly share the fee? It doesn't matter. It could be I send you a case and I maybe remember the person's name, and you say thanks for the case. You do whatever you want. You can say here's half the fee. Whatever you want to do with it, it's fair game.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's great. I think it's because it one, I think that the market probably has worked itself out in the way that people are going to give up a lot of money, and it could be a good marketing tool. So let's say you have, Billy has done this over time, and when you have her on, where I forget the numbers on it, but send somebody a check and say thanks for the case. They don't ask for it; they just send it to them, because that's a great marketing tool from the standpoint of let's say you send them a $300 check for a new case. That person's not going to be like, well, I'm gonna, I can retire now off of this money. It's not that kind of money, but it says to the person oh, well, let me make sure they're top of mind. That's not a bad thing. I gave them a phone number, and I know that they're going to be taken care of because that firm does a good job. And so it's a great marketing tool, I think. And I can't imagine firms overcorrecting and giving away too much money, because that would be stupid from a
why don't law firms put up billboards and say, send us a case, we'll send you $50?
It'd be smart.
I mean, can you legit do that in Arizona?
As far as I know.
That is interesting. If you are an Arizona law firm, I'm very curious to see if that's something that you could do. Because why wouldn't you?
Well,
why would you not do that then?
Right, and I don't know. I don't think there's any advertising rules on it, but there's no limitations on the split now.
I will say this: I have my reservations, and I'm trying to figure out if this is my bias because I'm a lawyer, or if it's because I don't know. I'm sure there's some bias tied into this. My reservations about this are that you're not referring them because they're the best lawyer. You're referring them because you're getting money out of it, and that is my concern. unless it was, you paid them like some sort of percentage of it, like on an injury case, like
Right.
you're going to send it to the best lawyer because they're going to get you the best cut.
Correct.
Right. Now, if you're getting a flat fee, that's different.
Right.
So I guess that's where my reservations are on it. I mean, you're kind of operating in the Wild West. It's kind of interesting.
It is. It's interesting out here. And the challenge where I see it is, as I work with firms around the country, you know, I don't work with a lot of Arizona firms. Most of my firms are elsewhere, and it's like you can't do the same things. You know, I would work with a firm and take a percentage of operations, you know, to run their show. But you can't do that anywhere else, like from the standpoint of any other state at this point.
So I want to know more about this MSO because we work with a lot of doctors because of personal injury that are involved in MSOs, which kind of my understanding what it's an MSO. Like for example, let's say we need an MRI facility, we need an ortho. Like it's standard. Here's like the standard case, right? They usually need like chiropractic care or physical therapy. They're going to need an MRI. They're going to need an ortho. They're going to need someone for pain management, right? Those are like the typical stuff.
Yep.
A lot of times there are these MSOs in St. Louis that you just go to them and they run all the operations, and then they have these doctors that sometimes are owners of the MSO, part owners, or they're just contracted with them, right? So you have this one little unit, and they kind of run everything, and then the doctor comes in, does the evaluation, does the treatment, and that's all the doctor really does.
Correct.
So how does yours work?
So ours is early, but it's, you know, it does have a lawyerly answer, and it depends. Mm-hmm. So in some scenarios, it is, we've got everything. We're going to employ the staff and rent it, like employ attorneys and rent it to the law firm.
Rent it to the law firm?
Yeah, like an employment relationship,
Okay.
or like you have with staffing companies where you and I've done this. I've actually done this for a tech company in the past years ago that did not have a U.S. presence. They weren't set up in the U.S. yet, so we hired a salesperson for them, employed them, and then they like paid us for their time, and so we kind of rented them out to them, and so they did sales for them. Mm-hmm. Same model where, you know, we can, because we have the infrastructure from, you know, payroll and, you know, benefits and all the things that, you know, maybe the law firm, especially the one that I'm thinking of, is new, and so we're keeping, because we're raising it from scratch. Like literally this morning, I was giving feedback on the website for it to go live today. Wow. And so that law firm is going to be real lean on purpose. Lawyers, website, and, you know, payment processing, but everything else will be run through the firm or through the MSO. And so we'll, you know, employ the staff. We'll employ the lawyers that are W-2 lawyers and then the firm will pay, you know, reimburse us for the costs on that. So that's the extreme where like the case management software, the operating system that we're, you know, creating is an AI first, like we're just, because we can, we're just like, all right, we'll make this agentic, we'll do all the fun stuff that's new and meaningful. So that's on that aspect of it. Other ends of it are you hire us to work with your existing team, and our team will complement and fill in gaps where they are. And you'll have existing technology, and we'll integrate in. If you don't want to just kind of wipe everything clean, we'll operate within that system and put our tech on top of it and integrate in. Which, you know, because part of this is a big, interesting experiment because it's new. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to, and with technology changing so fast with, you know, every week we're seeing like, well, is SaaS dead? Well, this one came out with this fee. Everything is going so crazy. Like, I don't want to get locked into a platform. I want to.
Sure.
But I can't because everything's changing so fast. And so we are experimenting with these different models because people are coming into us in different places as well.
Does this work with both litigation and transactional firms?
Yes.
Is it easier with one over the other?
No, they're the same. They're both hard.
So this is really hard for me to comprehend with that part, because I would think that litigation would be much harder because of and maybe I'm completely wrong about this. It seems like you need more people for the litigation type firms, at least with the way we operate, because I mean, you're dealing with, you got the pre-lit side, which is drastically different from the litigation side.
Yep.
And so to me, it seems like you would need a lot more people, so it would just be more complicated.
It can be. And I think it depends on where the firm's at. So if there are, the firm that I mentioned that, the Amicus, 25 years of running off of, an in-house server, and they've got an established staff, but the way they want to grow, they don't want to hire a bunch of more people. So we'll keep that team in place. It's a litigation firm, and grow around them. Mm-hmm. And there's buy-in from the whole team. They're all interested in it because they know that their roles get to change and evolve. They know that it's helping, the goal is to help with longevity of the firm, and what happens when that founder, that central person, decides to dial back, and for let's say 40 years, all the work has come in because of that person's name. They know that the handoff will be better over time. And so there's this exit strategy for the owner, but also longevity for purposes of the team, and they feel better about it because they're part of it too.
All right. So you're going in, let's say, I've got so many questions about this, because you go in, you're meeting with the law firm owner. Okay. They're the type that's very hesitant to really relinquish any sort of control over certain things. Let's make it a criminal defense firm, because that's usually very heavy on the personality.
Right.
Okay. So how do you pretend I'll pretend like I was back in the days when I was doing criminal defense. And so ask me the questions you'd ask the law firm owner to try to assess how you'd best be able to help.
The punchline on this is going to be, this is not a good fit for everyone. So what you're talking about there is if the questions go along and you realize up front, I don't bring this up front. I just had a conversation with a guy on Friday. I didn't know where, we were connected. I forget how we got connected, but it was a very specific thing. I think it was like intake or something. Yeah. But the conversation was not about intake ultimately. And,
interesting how that happens sometimes.
All the time. Yeah, yeah. And, but at one point, when I realized what he wanted, I brought up the topic, and he's like, "Oh, I just got an offer from private equity last week. I'm going to reject it because it's he's like, well, maybe I'll reject it. He told me about it, and I was like, that's a bad offer. And he's like, that's what my wife said. I'm like, yeah. So, but we got there. And so the issue, like with a criminal defense lawyer, for example, or, somebody with control is, what do they want? If they want, if their goals are, within the next 2 to 3 years, I want to hire an associate. I'd like to work a little less. I want to make more money. It's like, well, what kind of money? Well, I could use, I'm pretty happy where I am, another 50, 100,000 a year, small swings, which are fine, and that's okay. And that's going to be the vast majority of firms. This topic's not coming up. Like, what you should do? You should just ditch everything and turn it. It's not even a real conversation at that point, and that's not fair to say. Because they don't want it, and that's okay. So just understanding where the firm is going, and if you have somebody that has this, I've tried everything. I've hired 18 different coaches. I have 3 of them going now. I switch my software every year. I get it. I get the shiny object piece. And part of my world is I've built the ability to analyze shiny object stuff as part of my business model. So I don't hate that. But that doesn't work for everybody. And so if you're doing that, you're going to be disappointed because there's no, none of this, even what we're talking about, is some kind of little, magic wand. There's a lot of work that's going to go into it. And if you've just, screwed around with a whole bunch of different things, it's not going to be a good fit, because you got to be serious on it. And you probably aren't making enough money to actually invest in the concept. And that's okay. Not everybody is looking for that. Not everybody is looking for, a scaling up model. They're happy, like, because they get to go home and, at a certain time, and they're doing all the work. Maybe they have a paralegal or something. They're satisfied, and that's cool. But that's not going to be a good fit for this, because it's going to get wild, because we're going to change. You have to be ready to not know what's going to happen. You're going to give up that control. You're going to turn things over to others, and that's tough.
All right. Talking about wild, let's get crazy for a second, because I want to pivot to AI. I know you mentioned a little bit, but I really want to ramp things up a little bit here. So is it possible, do you think, to run a fully AI law firm right now? Yeah, now you've got to have the law firm. Assume you've got to have the law firm in most states where you've got a lawyer at the head. Okay, so you need one human to be the lawyer. Is it possible? And if so, what does it look like?
The answer is, I think, yes, and it's so close. Like, what does it look like? I think it is. It looks different almost week to week now.
It is. That part is really frustrating, but yes, you're right.
It's as we've kind of talked through this stuff, and this probably should not be a topic of your conversation with Billy, but she gives me so much. She's like, you're not going to solve this. Like, I'm like, I will come up with the right solution. But I finally had to let go and say, okay, look, things are changing so fast. The right model, I need, to think about this from the standpoint of, if you're going to set somebody up on it, what's the right platform to be able to be nimble and move around? Because,
well, what's that platform right now? Right now, as of
today. Well, I'm like, and this was a tough one, but I'm building on Notion. We're using Notion,
really,
which sounds left field.
It sounds,
but it's
yes. I would not. You would have, if you would have given me 50 guesses, I wouldn't put Notion in there.
Yeah. So yeah, I've wrestled with this a lot, but their AI approach is that, where they've. I don't even use. I'm wasting money on ChatGPT now because I don't use it. I mess around with it when I want to compare Claude versus ChatGPT versus Notion, but it's got its own mod, and you can pick models within it.
Yeah. What about Gemini?
Gemini's in it. But yeah, we use Google Workspace, and so we're building on Notion, and I've been using this in beta, but they've got custom agents that they just released generally yesterday that allow you to manage anything, manage your email, reach out, draft marketing content based on a Slack conversation that somebody, hearts with a reaction that will trigger, an agent to go out and do whatever you want on it. Mm-hmm. They've connected it to outside sources. Like, we use Stripe. It can go manage Stripe with custom agents now and go out and, you tell it, I need you to create a new customer and send out an invoice. It'll do it.
Have you played with Clawbot yet?
I have not.
Okay.
I did not. Like, I've read about it. I haven't used it. But it's part of the reason why I didn't jump into it. One is focus, trying to make sure, because I've been wrestling with this, and part of the reason I landed on the Notion model is it is the same concept minus the local nature of it. Yeah. They host it. And so I've been really trying to focus in, and because we're building these concepts with these firms, and you can't just bounce around all the time. You need to have, and so what I did was I looked at all the major players to say, okay, here's the landscape. Which platform has the AI theory, the AI execution model that fits with what we're doing.
Sure.
And that's where it was. Like, we've used Airtable forever as a back end.
People love Airtable.
It's great. Yeah. And they're a big player. And part of the reason you gotta choose somebody with like a lot of funding too. Cause like I love the startup world, but at the same time, you know, everybody's becoming irrelevant real quick. And if you don't have a track record, then, you know, we're just, you know, screwing ourselves over by adopting some tech on that.
And I'm going to ask you about legal tech in a little bit, because I'm very curious about what your thoughts are and what's going to happen with legal tech, because there's so much money flooding into it. But
right.
I want to ask you about N8N. Have you played around with N8N at all?
We use it a bit. We primarily use, our main tool on that front is Make, or things like Pipedream or WhaleSync that have kind of broader syncing as opposed to just kind of narrow tools.
Right.
We use on like a couple projects that are like real specific. We've used it.
Yeah, because that's where we've leaned into N8N. Although what's got me really interested in Gemini in Google is the ability to use gems and all that.
Right.
Which is but like what you were talking about with everything's changing, and you want to have something that's a dependable platform. I feel like we're so early in this. People probably think, oh, we are 3 years into this whole 4 years, because it was 2022 when it all just kind of changed. We're still at just at the very, very beginning. We're at the finish line, or the starting line of this. But like building a sustainable platform, I feel like you didn't mention Claude in any of your stuff. I think part of that is they don't have like this universe of things.
Right. So part of the reason why I landed where I have is, and I've had this conversation with Claude, like, because my chat history is probably like real stupid on this topic, because it's like, I know I talked to you about this a month ago. I would like to revisit it. And, you know, and
Your therapist.
Right. I know. Like, I had this conversation with Claude last week to say, you know, because it gives its recommendations, and, you know, I use different platforms for their recommendations, because, you know, Airtable's AI was like, yeah, you should definitely use Airtable. Like, obviously, cool. Thanks, Airtable. Yeah. That's they released a super agents platform that's superagents.com or something, that deep research produces these really cool presentations and documents on the whatever topic you want.
Sure.
So I was asking it, what, you know, platform should we use in the MSO concept, and yeah, of course it was like, you should definitely lead with Airtable. I'm like, cool. You know, Airtable.
Does it know you worked with Airtable?
It does, and I give it like, here's the list of things I've used. Here's what I like about them. I don't like about them. Here's what I think is missing. Here's what I want, you know, to have had. So I do that. I do the same analysis with all of them and just give them kind of this information, but. I did try to create a model with Claude with its skills and everything, and it's like, no, I'm not. It's not. You don't do this. You gotta, because it doesn't have a database behind it.
Right.
And now we can make much more simple databases. We don't have to be so complex with formulas and different things because of AI, but you still need the database behind it, and to store, you know, your matters in some fashion, or, you know, tracking leads. It doesn't have to be as complex. Like, we've been wrestling with one of our firms, you know, wants some very specific sales data, and figuring out the data behind it is there's years and years of it. We have manipulated it so it matches because of all the different platforms, but mixing it together from a traditional database perspective is messy, and it breaks all the time. And it was last week, I was like, well, why don't we just use AI for it? Take the messy database. Like, you've got 4 different solutions. You know, the overlay of AI on it allows us to get to the same end result. It will probably, you know, the interesting part about it is there's going to be a cost factor to it.
Totally.
Because
but it's minimal.
It's minimal. And, you know, Notion, with its release of custom agents yesterday, it's been in beta. I've been using it since they first got access to it. And May 4th, they're like, you have to pay with credits. Well, no shit. At some point, you have to pay for this, right?
Yeah.
And people are losing their minds. Like, oh, that's not fair. What? Like, why can't you just charge me a little bit more a month? Like, no, this stuff costs money.
This goes back to the whole Google problem that they created back in the early 2000s when they made it free and they went to this advertising model and everyone got spoiled on it, and then they expect everything to be free, but it's got to be paid for in some way. and
if you do it well, I was doing that when I just saw the pricing for the first time yesterday. Like as I've talked with my firms on this, like we're using tech, but really what we're building is workers.
Sure.
And which is a hard thing to get your head around.
Really hard for people to get their head around.
Like, we're going to build you hundreds of workers that are doing these things. And as I was doing the analysis on like the cost piece of it, we may pay thousands of dollars a month in agent credits, but that's okay because of the workers we're getting out of it, because you're also not hiring these, people to do these, tasks. So I think it ultimately ends up being cheaper, but it's hard for people to get their head around the idea of hiring tech to do work. This is different.
All right, so you mentioned data and AI and all that. Are there any tools that you recommend when it comes to analyzing data?
Oh, good question. So that's a broad one. It depends on where it's stored, because data could be.
Let's say a spreadsheet.
Right.
Okay.
Well, in that scenario, so let's say it's a Google sheet. Gemini is good.
Sure.
Using, any of the LLMs, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT, I think any of those right now are good. And most platforms have something built into it where if you do have a database where, let's say, Airtable, it has its ability to analyze it there. Notion is not known for the database component. It's kind of viewed as a place to put your notes and a fun little creative place, but it has a strong database background to it and can look at different sources. One of the reasons I landed on it, and this is not a Notion pitch or anything, but with its AI, it will look at OneDrive, Google Drive, your email, your calendar, all the things that are out there. And when I have conversations with it and I'm kind of working on ideas, it will tell me, like, well, you had this conversation in Slack in 2024, and it will cite to it. And it will remember these things, and it goes out and just finds this information. And so it can analyze. So when we're talking about analyzing data, there's the structured data, that's your spreadsheet type stuff. And then there's the other stuff out there that's all related to it. It's all about context at this point, which is real fascinating. So dropping a spreadsheet into Claude is a great way to get started, or dropping multiple spreadsheets in the Claude and say, hey, how do I reconcile these three things and how do they fit together? And now create a new spreadsheet that does X, Y, and Z. Just does it.
There was you're talking about data. There was a conversation in Circle that for the association the other day, and they were talking about like analyzing evidence, and it could be written discovery or whatever, but it was sort of shifted towards written discovery for PI firms or evidence for criminal defense firms, and being able to analyze video and all that really quickly, so you're not watching 8 hours of video.
Right.
Are there any tools that you've seen? I think Trial Kit is one. I think they were a sponsor of MaxLawCon. I'm pretty sure that they were. They'd come out there last year. I know that theirs was really, really good. Have you seen any other AIs out there that are good at analyzing like evidence or discovery?
The video part, I don't have a good answer on that. I mean, I've dropped a video into the traditional LLMs, and it will. They want transcripts to make it a lot easier on it. But as far as evidence is concerned, actually, the thing we were working on a couple weeks ago was disclosures. Every state's got their thing. So discovery, you're producing your pleading to go, and your client's giving you a bunch of garbage and uploaded it to the file. You've got that 8-page document that is 8 pictures, and
those are the worst, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've got all this stuff, and you've got to organize it, rename it, base label it, and create the pleading. And there are startups that have done this. There was Supio, which is mostly in the plaintiff's world, did a little bit of family law work for a while, and they were working on disclosures, and a firm we work with was using that, and it struggled at first because it was early. This was a few years ago too, so it was kind of early, and they struggled with getting this stuff together.
Sure.
We did the same exercise last week with Claude and dropped a folder in and said, here's a template for the discovery, do it. And it, more words, but it base labeled, it organized, renamed, created the pleading, and it was great. And so that it was doing the kind of work of a paralegal, and then you could also ask it about the analysis of what's in there too. I think the analysis part for documents is becoming real easy. Video, I think, is harder, but the document component to it is just becoming, any of the platforms will do that. You just have to obviously be careful with making sure you're not sharing the information and blah, blah, blah.
Click all the right buttons and
click
all that
the buttons
shit,
and get over that issue and recognize that. But yeah, I think it's becoming real easy on that front so in that example, there was a startup that was trying to tackle this problem 2 or 3 years ago, and it was struggling with it. And now you can just be like, hey, Claude, just do this. And it's a lot easier. So I think it's just becoming easier and easier to do it.
All right, so this is going to lead to the legal tech conversation that I want to have, because I think that the legal tech companies have a massive problem. They have a really massive problem that for some reason private equity has not figured out. They're dumping all this money in, but what seems to be the shift is away from these individual softwares, right? Let's say use Clio or Filevine or Practice Panther, you name it, right? That's like a small, tiny component now of the overall system. Now the system seems to be, okay, for this thing over here, we're going to use a little bit of, let's see, we'll use N8N. Okay, we'll maybe use some Make for over here. So we're kind of stringing things together to solve this overall firm problem. And the practice management softwares are now the smallest component out of all of it. And the things that they have to offer are not what we need. And so I wonder what your thoughts are, because and right now I went out and did it. I was just playing around. I went and used Bolt. I took Bolt probably 3 or 4 months ago. I was like, I'm gonna see if I can build a case management system that I like myself. Right. And I did it. We're not using it. We're using it as a playground.
Right.
To actually, we'll build components in it. How do we like this? How do we like it fits with how do we like how it fits with other things? And then we'll take that thing and put it into our software, right? Because we built our own. So that's why I think that they've got a massive problem. I don't know what your thoughts are on this.
I think, I don't disagree with you, but it also is, we are in a profession that is not going to ditch things that are comfortable. And I don't think it's reasonable that, that firms are going to start all of a sudden, not everybody's going to build their own stuff. I love that you build your own stuff. That's fun. But it takes a lot of work, and not everybody's interested in that. Most people got into this to practice law, to serve clients, and fill in the blank of other industries, accountants, like doctors, like the MSO model we're talking about earlier.
Yeah. They
just want to treat patients. They don't want to deal with it, whether their copy or lease needs to be renewed or firing a receptionist. They just get in and get out and do the work. I think the real issue that we're starting last week, or whenever Claude released the legal plugin, and I forget, it's like $200 billion in value of legal tech software immediately after the legal plugin, something like that.
I hear things like that.
Who knows what that means?
Yeah, exactly,
whatever.
Yeah.
The point is, though, whether that's a real number or not, it means, oh, okay, well, how's this going to play out? Sure. And and then it allows you to start comparing, Clio work to Claude doing the same tools, and they're going to do different things. And so you get into what you're talking about of, you have to start figuring out what works best for you in very specific circumstances. And now you're using all this stuff. We're going from this, can you run your operation off of this one thing, Clio, Filevine, because you used to be a Filevine user, right?
Yeah.
And
I love Filevine. I like the people at Filevine.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a demo with a firm that was, they have like a platform that's industry agnostic, and they were thinking about Filevine. And I watched a demo. I hadn't seen it in probably about a year, and I was like, the AI stuff they're doing, it fits nicely together. It looks really good, but at the same time, demand letters now or medical like. I'm telling this to a person that you've lived and breathed this, but watching the amount of lawyers that have struggled with demand letters and medical records and how to and finding the right people to be able to do the work and all, like, even like a couple of years ago, like I had firms that were like, we can't get our medical records together and we can't find people to do this well. Mm-hmm. Now it's like, it's clicking the button, or not even clicking the button. It's just making sure the information is there and it just does it and it writes it. And it's not, and those are great looking features in Filevine, but anyone can do it without, you drop it into your favorite little chat feature and it will get it done. So the interesting part is, and this is why that conversation I had earlier is like, can I just use you, Claude, to solve all these problems? It's like, no, I'm not there yet. But it will be, because you drop one legal plugin, and that's what did that disclosure concept that I was talking about, analyzing the data, doing the paralegal work on things. I think, it will shift, and those that are, but everybody's positioned differently. So if you think about Clio, for example, they do payment processing now. Think about I remember at a ClioCon years ago, Jack announced something like billions of dollars of invoices are getting processed through Clio every year. Mm-hmm. Meaning like clients are paying law firms for billions of dollars. Well,
they were using LawPay at the time, right?
They were probably using LawPay, but now they're using ClioPay. That's, you're going to run out of users for lawyers. Same with, my case has always been this, second-class citizen, behind Clio,
sure, yeah.
Right or wrong. And, with LawPay, AffiniPay picking them up, now you have payment processing.
Sure.
Too. And so it's that part of the model isn't going away. Payment processing needs to be there for, most firms that aren't, on the plaintiff side. And so those models stand. So and they can experiment around it. It's those that we're a database with a nice front end and will manage your tasks, and you can see your clients all in one spot. Those are going to become less and less relevant real quick, because if they don't have a catch or a hook that keeps somebody there, like, why bother?
What's funny about my case? Every my case user that I know loves it. They love MyCase, and
they love the client portal.
Yeah, and so I've always been surprised by the fact that it's not been more commonly adopted. I think what Clio did that was the smartest thing that they did is they were early, but they kept their prices low. I don't know if their prices are early or now, but remember early on, they were super cheap. And so what they did is they built up this army of people. I'm assuming that Clio's the most used platform. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I'm assuming that it is. Do you think it's probably is?
I feel like it is the largest one.
So like they probably have the biggest database of users. Right. And so they kind of have all these people that they were able to build their platform on, get better. And then they probably I'm guessing they probably have increased their prices over time, which gives them just a massive advantage, because a lot of if you compare them to like the Filevines of the world, Filevine's pretty expensive. I mean, it's pretty expensive compared to a lot of the other platforms.
Yeah, and the Clio is, I'm trying to think, if you use like grow, manage, I want to say $150-ish a month. Clio work is another $200, but that's legal research. That's replacing Westlaw and Lexis, which is going to be cheaper. the Clio work will be cheaper on that. But if you think about it from the standpoint of employee savings and time savings and efficiencies and stuff, like then it makes sense. It's kind of like with the custom agents and having to pay for AI credits. If you're kind of replacing other costs on it. But then you also have other models that are coming out, or not coming out, but that exist where Even Up, Eve, I think they're one of them. I know is charging by case. Mm-hmm.
I know that they spend a ton on marketing because I get gifts from them, and it's like not cheap stuff. Like they're canvassing lawyers with gifts of stuff. I'm like, holy crap! And I've not used them. I mean, like everyone that I talk to, both about Even Up and Eve, they say nice things about them. They say really good things about them. So it sounds like they're doing good work. I just know that they've got to be spending a ton of cash right now.
Right. It sounds like it. They'll get you.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's say you've got an 18-year-old.
I do have an 18-year-old that's about to graduate.
Well, I'm going to give you, okay, then let's stick with the 18-year-old. I didn't know your kid was that old.
Yes.
Wow.
I know.
That's crazy. Okay, so you got an 18-year-old. They're like, I want to go to undergrad and I want to go to law school. Okay. What advice do you give to them?
My 18-year-old, you don't give any advice to because she knows everything.
Well, I'm going to make you give advice.
Right.
This time.
But she's actually thinking about this. She's thinking about marketing and then law school. It's kind of the latest that we've heard. The answer is I don't know, because we're watching it. We're watching these things evolve, but the gut feel right now is the jobs that are going away are more, or evolving even more, are the legal assistants and the paralegals, the case managers. Right. Those are what are being really automated away. You can't currently send a robot into court. You can't send them the negotiation piece. The analysis is getting helped out a lot, if you've got some things. But the human interaction part, it's just all the roles are being narrowed down to, can you really interact with humans well? And because we can, have AI intake call out and talk with adjusters or update your clients on things. But when the real hard stuff occurs, you need to be able to handle the personal nature of things and the analysis of it that goes beyond, because everything we're feeding in to AI right now, this is not an original thought, but it's only as good as what you're doing with it. If you say like, help me do this, and you don't give it any context or what, it's not, garbage in, garbage out kind of idea. Right. But the smarter you are about it and the better you're able to analyze things and jumpstart it, the more helpful it's going to be for you. So I think the profession, if you were 18 now and 4 years from now you're applying for law school, have we changed that much? Probably not, because part of the thing is institutionally, while private firms may evolve, the institution's not going to change. Courts aren't going to just ditch all their local rules and say, we should have a unified system that makes it really easy for people to file on their own. No. What state was it? It was Tennessee. Who did I see on this? It's always good to tell stories. I can't remember the details. I think it was a court in Tennessee, or maybe the Supreme Court, released some forms for pro se litigants, and but they put all these rules on. It made it kind of an unusable model. Mm-hmm. And I saw some lawyer on some social somewhere complain about it. It's like, well, if you're trying to help people, but you're making it impossible to actually do, you're not solving the problem. So
true.
Access to people for people without lawyers is not going anywhere. It's going to be a problem for a while. So institutionally, lawyers are still aren't going anywhere.
Right. I do think you're going to have to necessarily. You're going to have a shift towards ones that truly are going to depend on humans, like litigation type stuff.
Right.
So criminal defense, family law, personal injury, like it's going to, by necessity. It does make me wonder what's going to happen with like estate planning firms and things like that are very transactional.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that probably goes faster, because that's not new, right? Because we've had, the fight over LegalZoom is a decade plus old.
True.
Right.
Yeah. It's probably 2 decades.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it would be. But lawyers haven't gone away on that front. They're still needed, but the complex nature of being able to solve your own problems, now is a lot easier with AI.
Sure.
So I think that is, going to be, and then you've got e-notary, you've got all these COVID kind of kicked off a lot of those things that allowed for remote, concepts that now keep evolving. So I think probably those are more at risk. I mean, this is the trick with all this, is that it's, if it's more transactional, you're probably more at risk. But
all right, so let's wrap on this. I want to ask you, let's say you've got a law firm owner that comes to you and they want your best advice. They're a solo. They've got the experience and all that, and they want to build a national practice. Let's go with family law. Okay, I think that may be more in your wheelhouse. I know you deal with others too, but I think with family law, it might be the most in your wheelhouse. And they want to build like a national firm. What is your advice, knowing the sort of the environment that we're in now? What is your best advice to them as to how to start? Like, what's the bedrock of their firm?
And the bedrock of their firm is, having, a core infrastructure that works well for you in your own place. Like, if you can't function in your own jurisdiction or have a successful practice out of the gate, nationally, it's not going. You got to prove it first. If we're talking about starting from scratch, like that's where you got to go. And there's lots of different ways people can go about this, but I think starting out, if you're new to the profession, you say like, hey, or you're not established in your world, it's a hard one to do. The family formation firm I mentioned earlier, those were 8 of the leading firms around the country that joined together. That is a lot, it's more difficult and, easier in some ways because you've got a lot of established folks that have that network. I think you got to get yourself right first, because we've seen a lot of lawyer referral matching websites and stuff, because you're really you got to get your firm in place, and then you've got to build your network to figure out who you want to work with. Because just because you want to build a national firm doesn't mean that you are you're going to find the right people for it. You still have to have the humans everywhere to be able to, whether it's, you have to have the boots on the ground from a license perspective. You have to know the right people. And if you match with subpar people, that's not going to go well for you. And you're just wasting money and time. So you got to establish yourself, which that's old school, right? I didn't say you got to build some robots and things. You gotta be established. Otherwise there's not the credibility there.
Consistency is boring, and boring is what wins.
Right.
That's the reality of it. And I don't know if you're on Becca's list yet, but we'll get you on beccaslist.co. If people want to reach out to you, if they're interested in maybe the MSO model, how do they get in touch with you?
LinkedIn. I'm just kidding. Don't. You can try. If you want to see what I look like maybe 12 years ago, glasses, bigger face, other things. Chad at modernlawpractice.com is the best way.
Perfect. Like I said, we'll get you on Becca's list. Okay. If anyone has questions for Chad, make sure you reach out to him. He's great. I've known you for years, so appreciate doing this, man.
Yeah,
really
it's great.
Love it.
A lot of fun. Thank you.